This is David Ross, and welcome once again to the Lion's Roar. So, I've discussed this several times about how, in some ways I appear to be a contradiction because I'm the guy that'll tell you, I'll quote Krishnamurti and say that, truth cannot be organized and it cannot be, formulated. I'm against laundry lists and stuff like that, but I'm always constantly creating curriculum and setting up instructional platforms and, talking about organizing stuff to make it easier. But my defense always is that, these are expedient means. And what that means is it's a vehicle. It's an imperfect vehicle. It is a way of approaching people at the level that they're ready to approach material. It is not truth. It is just a vehicle towards truth. It's an approaching truth without being truth. So this applies in so many different ways. In other words, curriculum-wise, and that's what I'm going to talk about tonight, curriculums. I'm producing them, been sharing them with some of you, and as we're definitely not coming out of the pandemic, but I'm still thinking very strongly about reopening, and when I reopen, obviously, then I will start putting out these curriculum, and we're doing a lot, particularly with the Shui Jiao right now, but again, not truth, but expedient means, which is a vehicle to approach truth. And so if you've trained with me, if you've listened to me for a long time, you probably know that my approach is that everything is the same. In other words, my senior students, I don't go, well, this is Sanda, and this is Shui Jiao, and this is Lama, and this is Bak Mei, and it's all the same. But increasingly, looking at it from the point of view of expedient means and vehicles of approaching things, we've talked about the fact that we were creating a curriculum for the Shui Jiao, being particularly Master Zheng's Baoding, Chengdong Sheng lineage. A curriculum for the Sanda, which is the more, what I would characterize at a certain level as modern training. But I've also started looking at, some stuff that doesn't fit necessarily into that easily, which, is more of the Lama, the Bak Mei, some Xingyi, and some Bagua. I'm talking about doing a China curriculum, which includes some of the self-defense stuff. What do I mean by self-defense? I've talked about the 5 petals, and the 5 petals are that if you're really doing Chinese martial arts the correct way, you have your physical conditioning, your physical culture, your, for lack of a better word, health and development, body awareness, mobility, movement. You have Sanda, which, is sparring. You have Shui Jiao with the jacket. You have China, and then you have self-defense. And I've said, before that the way that self-defense is really approached in the martial arts industry, it's kind of incorrectly labeled and incorrectly presented because, people want to do a self-defense seminar, a day or a weekend or, a 10-lesson, course or something like that. And I've said before, self-defense is fighting. I mean, if you get attacked, you don't know, is it going to be like a wild swing or are you going to end up on the ground? I've said in some respects, if I was getting somebody ready for a pro MMA fight and somebody was asking me about, women's self-defense, the training wouldn't be really that different. You don't want to get, hit in the head where you're not, either out completely or disoriented on your feet. If you're on the ground, how to keep somebody from being on top of you and how to get back up on your feet. It's a misnomer. I mean, like, you can show some people, quote unquote, self-defense as it is right now in the martial arts world, which is, gross motor, simple motions that can be used for, if you get attacked tomorrow, this might get you out of it. But the reality is that, in an incredibly violent world where you have professional criminals, really training for self-defense is really martial arts training. So what is, quote unquote, self-defense? I would argue that real self-defense, when we really use that term, are the strategies for avoiding bad situations and de-escalation if you do find yourself in those situations. And also knowing that you're going to be legally on the right side of the law when you do have to do something. And that's how I approach it. So, I mean, I would say to you, if you want me to teach you self-defense, I will sit down and talk to you about how you avoid, bad situations. And there was 4 or 5 rules that one of the judo instructors I worked with years ago had. They were excellent. Pardon me. And stuff that I guess, would seem common sense, but a lot of people are loath to follow. Don't go places where people drink a lot. People like to go out and they like to have drinks and like to go to bars, but you have to realize that when people drink a lot, violence can happen, and then you're not really sure, are you on the right side of the law when you defend yourself? Because, a drunk comes at you and you try to get him off of you, and he falls down and breaks his neck or hits his head and dies. It's not a situation any of us would ever want to really be into. Other of it is, probably a little more common sense. Stay away from people that sell drugs or use drugs, or, use drugs or sell drugs, or hang out with people that use drugs, because, that's just an activity that lends itself to criminal people and violence. Do not engage with other people's significant others, their boyfriends, their girlfriends, their husbands, their wives, because you're inviting trouble. And again, if, let's say you were messing around with somebody's wife and the husband shows up, are you going to be on the right side of the law if you defend yourself? And for a lady, what if, the girlfriend shows up or the wife shows up? Again, I'm not trying to be sexist at all about this. I'm talking about these things. Another thing I teach in the quote-unquote self-defense is the idea that you put your hands up and announce that you don't want any problems. And I talk about how witnesses are reliable for being unreliable. So you can actually take a fighting stance, but not with closed fists, but with open hands. So almost like a Shini Santi kind of position. And if you announce very loudly, I don't want any problems, if you then have to, poke somebody in the eyes, kick them in the groin, snap their neck down and, throw them down on the, when the police come, they will ask, well, what happened here? And they will say, oh, they put their hands up and said, I don't want any problems. And it'll sound like, your hands are way up over your head and you're going, oh, please don't help me, as opposed to a very forceful, I don't want any problems, like a fighting stance. And I say that when you put your hands up, also, when I talk to women about this, I said that, a man can be as vulgar as he wants on the other side of your hand. That's not an excuse to engage in violence. And, men sometimes, when they're, either offended that a woman was not interested in their advances, or they're, doing what they call woofing or interviewing, will say things to get a reaction out of somebody. And the answer is that as long as they're on the other side of the hand, of course, if they reach out to grab your hand or come close to you and reach your hand or beyond your hand, well, that's the imminent threat. And pretty much everywhere in the United States, I don't know about other countries, so, I know this podcast sometimes is seen in other countries, but I'm just going to talk about the United States. Anywhere in the United States, there's a huge variety of law, but, the idea of an imminent threat, well, I had to defend myself because I was, threatened at that moment. So in other words, if you have your hand up and you're saying, I don't want any trouble, and then they come to that hand or beyond it, well, then you legally can defend yourself. And so that's really self-defense. So, I'm going to include some things that are sort of self-defense-y in the China curriculum. We're going to have a Sanda curriculum, which is, also sometimes, again, because we're dealing with expedient means, and we're dealing also with how do we approach people. And I have this story about, one of my seniors, one of the guys that I promoted to black belt. I won't, drag his name into it. We amusingly noted that, he saw in Groupon for the school and just wanted to do basically fitness kickboxing classes and lose a couple pounds, and then of course became involved in everything. And so I didn't know I was going to be doing kung fu and knife fighting and qigong and all this other stuff. Again, because if we'd said to him, well, come in and we're going to teach you this advanced martial arts that's a combination of all these other things, he would have been like, I don't know. It's expedient means. It's a vehicle to approach people at the level that they're ready to accept being part of the process. And so, a Sanda curriculum is also, slash a Muay Thai program. Because if you have to say Muay Thai because people come in because you're doing elbows and you're doing knees and you're doing kicks and you got gloves on and shorts most of the time, then that's what it is. Like I said, there's going to be some kung fu stuff, just because, again, when I teach my advanced people, they know that I don't have these these divisions, they're artificial divisions. But as far as running my school, for example, as I'm thinking about reopening and opening it, I'm going to have a class that's going to be labeled as a fitness technique class. I'm going to have a class that's labeled as a Sanda class. I'm going to have a class that's labeled as a Shui Jiao class with jackets on. I'm going to have classes that are labeled as Kung Fu for, working, the line basics and the Lama basic fists and stuff like that. I'm also thinking I'm going to have an MMA class because there's stuff that just doesn't fit neatly in a Kung Fu program. It doesn't fit neatly in the Shui Jiao program. It doesn't fit neatly in the Sanda program. But again, my overall goal is to give people a good martial education and prepare them as much as possible. And again, I don't believe these things are really separate, but I'm going to offer them, like on a Monday, some sort of this stuff, and a Tuesday, some sort of this stuff, and a Wednesday, some sort of this stuff. So there's going to be these curriculums. And again, what happens also is that people will maybe, they will, because I know this from personal experience, they will gravitate toward, a certain aspect. They might like doing the Shui Jiao with the jacket. They might like doing the Sana / Muay Thai. They may like more MMA kind of stuff. They may like more of the Kung Fu kind of stuff. I will, of course, always encourage people to do as much or all of it. But again, as expedient means, I'm looking at these curriculum, Sanda, Shui Jiao, Qin, just to have one curriculum that has all the Qin stuff. And as you know, my belief is that practically Qin is like 5 or 6 things that will really work. As far as thinking about it as a conceptual idea, well, that's what it's going to be. I'm going to show some stuff which I don't know if necessarily going to use these techniques exactly as I show them in the curriculum in a fight, and again, we can discuss, well, what does a fight mean? But there are things that teach you principles that can then be applied, for example, on the ground in an MMA setting or in the ground in a quote-unquote self-defense setting. They're conceptual. We're teaching them to people not because they'll be replicated exactly like that, but because, they're conceptual. So, Sanda, Shui Jiao, Qin, like I said, there's going to be an MMA curriculum also. And certainly in there also, because I want to start teaching people some basic ground. I hate to say this, the pandemic has been horrible for a lot of people. A lot of people are suffering. A lot of people have died. But out of horrible things sometimes become opportunities. I mentioned this, back when we started with the franchise, and I was doing some consulting, and that was the economic downturn of 2009, 2008, 2009, that, crisis creates opportunity. There's a similar saying to this in Chinese also. And so for me, having, first run like a fighter's gym and then strayed a little bit, completely into doing more like fitness stuff because, again, I had bills to pay and, family to support. But the thing about the pandemic is having a lot of time to myself and not running full-time at school, and I'm going to be reopening, which is always like a new starting point. It's given me a different perspective on things. So I'm going to be going back to things. And so I want to make sure that we're doing some basic ground. I've been also very pleasantly surprised by the movement in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is, as I've said numerous times in other discussions, when I first started doing Jiu-Jitsu, which was, in the early 90s, it was it was Gracie Jiu-Jitsu first, and then for political reasons, there was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But at the early stages, it was basically just because of the lawsuits and the people suing each other. But it was still Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, just under a different name because people were suing each other. And I don't want to get into that right now. But it got to the point where, when we had a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor at the school, it had become really more about the sport. And the sport just honestly doesn't interest me. It's not something that I feel is really important unless you want to do that. And if you want to do that, go to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. The original Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was not just Vale Tudo, but if you understand that Elio Gracie, when he was going to write a book for the mass market, wanting to focus on the self-defense aspect more than anything else. Just a different conceptualization, and I like what Hori and Sons have done, which is, the Gracie Combatives, which is also focusing on the original intent of the Gracie family method. It's a guard, that if somebody punches you, it still works. And Hickson's doing sort of the similar thing, and Atkins, who's one of Hickson's students, is doing a similar thing. And so that gives me sort of a glimmer of hope and a little bit of an inspiration to start showing people some ground as I understand it and as I learned it in the 90s. And again, I'm not trying to run a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu program. I'm not trying to be a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu person, but I think as a martial arts instructor trying to do the best for my students, I want to show them some things that, if they found themselves on the ground, they're not completely lost. I think it's irresponsible also as a martial arts instructor to give somebody the false idea that you'll never end up on the ground, because you can. I made very conscious decisions. I've talked about, there's certain things I didn't want to get involved in as far as, quote unquote, real fighting. If you're interested in blades and guns and life and death matters, there's certainly the Dog Brothers Die Less Often. As I always say, note the title, Die Less Often, not you're not going to die if you know this stuff, but higher percentage. There is a STAB program, S period, T period, A period, B period. I don't even remember what it stands for. There is Red Zone. There's some very good programs out there, and I specifically said I didn't want to necessarily go that far into it. I'm sort of mid-right. In other words, I'm sort of sitting in the middle, a little more to the right in the sense of, I'm not talking about politics, but martial arts, being a little more combat oriented, a little more practical oriented, but I'm not going to go all the way to, like where, the focus is so much on, if the guy has a gun and a knife and, and you have a knife, and I just, more than it doesn't interest me, because there was some moral considerations there. And I think I said at one point in a podcast, I was watching one of the Dog Brothers things, and he said, at this point, you have to make a decision. And it was an important moment for me that I did stop the tape. This is back when it was VHS tape, so I can tell you how long ago it was, and thought about it, and it did sort of change my direction. So, the good news is curriculum will come out. If you've already contacted me about the Chinese Shuijiao Association, I said to people quite honestly, the pandemic has put us back, so people that join, we're going to start in January if you have a membership, all the way through. So if you joined, you're going to get a couple extra months. For the people in the Shuijiao Association, I promised the Sanda curriculum will be included as well. For the beginners, for the first 50 people that joined as instructors, because I am trying to get things started. I've been so buried that I haven't reached out to people that I'm supposed to reach out to, and I hope they'll forgive me for doing that. We will be focusing first on the Sanda and the Shuijiao, probably the Shuijiao and then the Sanda in that order, getting them all out and done and refilmed, especially once I have a full-time space where I can really focus on filming stuff. Then the MMA, and then the miscellaneous things like the Chinan, the other miscellaneous Kung Fu stuff that's out there. Some of it might be done like we're doing the Sanda right now. I have started doing Sanda classes after, more than a year with the pandemic. We did start doing some contact classes, and I did start doing it with the new curriculum. So basically, right now we're going through white belt material in the Sanda program, and I'm filming the classes. So it's not as good as filming curriculum stuff, filming the way it is, but I put it up for $10, and soon it's going to go up in price. But if you catch this and you want to jump in right now, it's basically going to be all the white belt material. So it'll be out there, and if you want to get a jump start on the curriculum, it's going to be all the white belt stuff is going to be taught in those classes and filmed and available. And I'm thinking I might do some stuff similar with, once I get started again with the Shuijiao classes and the Kung Fu classes and stuff, filming it and making it available to people. And then, of course, there'll also be the actual, instructional, me and probably EJ and a couple of the other seniors filming with all the details and very well organized. I was very happy that I got the last version of the book out, which is really quite a good outline. I wanted to make sure that was out there. It was kind of my feeling like, well, if I get hit by a truck tomorrow, or Lord forbid, we are living in COVID times, and we really don't know. The book is a good outline, and you'll notice the book is not presented as several different curriculums. It's presented as one curriculum. So again, you sort of see my insight, though. Knowing me, and as I say, I'm always, my Expedient Means is also like a San Mandala. I've said, find out, in New York City, we used to have a thing called the Open Center in downtown Manhattan. Don't know if it's still around because of what's going on with COVID and everything, but they used to sponsor Tibetan monks to come down and do the San Mandala, and it was amusing to watch, especially at the end, because people would come in like, oh, that thing is so beautiful, and then the monks would go and wipe it clean, and it would disappear, and they would have a nervous breakdown, which is exactly the point. Everything I say in these podcasts and everything I publish are capturing moments in time. They're not truth by any stretch of the imagination. And so I may start also publishing curriculum separated out. I'm sort of resisting the urge to do that because I'm like a shark. If I'm not swimming, I'm not happy. So the irony is, when the holidays, we're right after the Christmas and going into New Year's. I say Western New Year's because we also have Chinese New Year's coming up. But I love the fact that I have time to spend with my family. I do love my family, but I'm also not as active, as you can tell, over the last week or so, putting stuff up. And in a way, it also kind of throws me off because I'm just used to, like a shark, constantly moving. It's like that Mike Tyson quote, "Why are you running at 5 in the morning?" Because I know that my opponent is not, just that kind of thing. Excuse me. So I'm not sure, in what format we'll be doing. I don't know if I'm going to do a book format. I know I'm definitely going to do on Teachable, all the curriculums. And I will probably put together some kind of bundled package deal if you want to buy them all. Right now, obviously, with the massive archive that James gave me when I assumed the Shuijiao Association, presidency, we were able to put out something that has an outline of the first 3 ranks, which is available to everybody. If you join as an instructor, obviously you're going to get more, but for $39 as a student member, you're going to get the first 3 ranks. And of course, one of the things I really want to do once things calm down a little bit and we're open full time is start offering seminars also, where you can come and not just work the curriculum but test the curriculum, so that we can do rank, particularly for the Shuijiao, because I'm trying to get the Shuijiao started all over again. Some of you might have noticed that I did a version of this a couple of days ago, and then I had to delete it because I had some interference and loud feedback noises, like I was standing in front of an amp or something. So I did this again. I hope I covered the same amount of material. I hope I'm as lucid as then. I felt pretty lucid today. I sort of jumped on to do it. But it's the end of a long day for me. But I wanted to stress yet again that any kind of curriculum or program is just, expedient means. It is not the truth, but it can be useful. This is David Ross, and as always, thank you so much for listening to me.